Hey guys, this is Paul Smith, and you're watching Coursen's Corner.
Well, that was just way more animated than it was 20 minutes ago. We had, if we sound like we're a little disjointed, we just did a 20-minute podcast that my microphone was not plugged in for.
Yeah.
So from the top.
Dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
You did great, by the way.
You were awesome.
Yeah.
I really liked it when you did the lean back,
you like
the
that?
leg cross.
Yeah, because actually
down.
That's when I saw that, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I didn't actually say that. So I was like,
Are you the friend that won't tell your other friend that his zippers down? You just allow. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'll be like, I'll hit him with one of those.
We were before we realized we weren't actually recording anything. We were talking about sales isn't about selling something. It's about the relationship and the rapport that you build with the people that are in the market for whatever it is you're selling. Was being good at sales something you were always good at, something that you cultivated over time, or was it something that you saw other people do?
I think that taking that one step, kind of chucking up a little bit more, I think not just sales is about relationships. I think all business is about relationships at the end of the day, right? There's going to be some businesses that are not necessarily going to be as relationship based. A lot of times engineers, software, stuff like that. Now, of course, the salespeople is one thing, but I think when it comes to business, it's about relationships.
Yeah. I'll say that on my side of the house, threat management, safety, security, there are a lot of people who can do what I do, but I think one of the things that I'm able to provide is I'm able to instill confidence. Right. They feel safe with me.
Which is important.
That they just, because I think there's a dichotomy, right, between like safety and security. Like safety is a feeling. Security is a state of being.
For sure.
And those two things need to be in concert with one another, in Congress with one another, in order for protection to be in place.
Right.
I think it's something similar with any kind of business, whether it's like buying a car or a house or a watch or a suit. Do I feel comfortable with this purchase? And is this purchase in alignment with who I am?
Right.
When you're selling a house, someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm in the market for a listing, right? Or are those people coming and saying like, hey, I want this kind of a house? Or how much of that is like cultivating the user experience into like kind of getting a read on? Steve Jobs used to always say people don't know what they want until you show them.
For sure.
Is that also true in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good part of it is a moving target, right? It's to say, had a conversation with a client yesterday, right? He's moving in from California. Unfortunately, with the fires, water is not great out there right now. Air quality is not great out there right now. And so they're looking at moving his family to Austin. And so the conversation just starts as a friendly conversation, because ultimately for me, I'm fortunate to get to work with friends. And so it's not let's sit down kind of all buttoned up, like, hey, this is Paul Smith. Welcome to Austin. I've had those times actually. And a lot of those guys now are my really good friends, and crazy stories of fun things that we've done, and, talking about getting insurance while floating the river and, all that stuff. Yeah. And, but I think as we, evolve as people, we start to kind of gravitate towards the type of either ideal client that we want to have, or our friend group gets smaller. So we're not out making 1,000 phone calls to try to work with 10 people that may or may not like us. It's like, look, we're going to work with people that say, hey, look, I want to work with you.
How did you learn how to do that? Was that something that you cultivated over time? Is it a trial and error thing? Because here's something I use statements. I used to try to hey, let me do this for you for free. It was a hard thing, and it almost became the less I tried, the more easy it became. The more I found that my services were more about the dynamic. The more I realized that flipping the script from perception to perspective was huge for me.
Yeah.
Right. But I had to go through a lot of trial and errors to kind of realize that.
For sure.
Once I realized that, I was able to kind of like cultivate it and grow it and nurture it and kind of get it to where it is today. But, you're coming from a military background. You're working at Chili's.
God, you really did your research.
You're I got a file on you.
It sounds like 20 minutes of conversation that didn't make it. He's like, fuck you guys.
What?
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we were talking earlier. I'll just give a little bit of backstory. There was a golf pro when you were a kid that was like into real estate. You kind of equated wealth with
there's something at a young age, basically kind of instilled something or kind of imprinted something on me at a young age that equated real estate to success. And that was because I was caddying at a young age at a private golf course in New Hampshire. And that's the only thing I can think of on how I ended up in real estate. Getting back to the relationship thing, like I'd always been kind of the class clown. I'd always been the person that would, pop a joke at the right time or maybe not the right time, certainly. But also understood, when to not take it too far. Right. And I think that was something that I still am obviously not great at. Just ask my wife. But, there's times in which where as a kid, it was even worse. Right. And so there's a lot of that. Actually, I think Gary Vee said it best. One of the most underrated skills is charisma. That really kind of resonated with me. I like that. Underrated skills is charisma. Looking at that Venn diagram of real estate and wealth, was that something in your mind that, I need to buy real estate? Like, when did it come into I can sell it? I think that I had always equated real estate to be the top level of sales. Oh, okay. Right. In my mind, right, real estate was always the top level of sales. It was interesting when I was working at Chili's, right, started out and had no server experience. Within 2 years, was a corporate trainer. Within 3 months, I was a bartender. Yeah. And they'd always have these Presidente Margarita competitions. And I would wreck everybody, not even like close. This would be like if Jordan was playing against junior high kids. Like I was the one that was working the lunch shift at first, selling like 70-year-old ladies Presidente Margaritas. Mm-hmm. And I had a spiel, and I would hit the spiel, I would hit the comments, and I would try to make eye contact. I would wait to see the body movement, stuff like that, and really started to kind of hone my ability to read people off of pitching them at the table of Presidente Margarita. Interesting. So, did a real estate group of people come into the bar? Did you apply to be a realtor? Yeah. So, I had, unfortunately they let me go. I gave away a beer, which I know now that a $3.25 tall boy cost Chili's about $1, but they fired me over that. Really? Yeah, they did. Chili's, bastards. But that was great because what it did is it put me outside of my comfort zone and called a friend and got a job bartending downtown, which downtown bartending is drastically different than Chili's. This is here in Austin. Yeah, downtown. So I started working at a 18 and up club called Platinum X. Okay. Which I don't know how long you've been in Austin. It was 12 years. Came here in 2012. Might have been Pure when you got here. Okay. Pure. Yep. Pure. Yeah. Yeah. So prior to that, it was Platinum X. And so was bartending at Platinum X. It quickly became the number one bartender there. And there was other bars that the owners owned. And I was like, look, if I, put me on the busiest bar, if I ring this much, you'll move me to the bar I want to go to. He said, done. Yeah. And I did it. And so then became a bar manager at another bar. And at around that time, it was Halloween actually, I met my wife. I was dressed as a Hooters girl. I fit into a medium, by the way. I was about $1.75, tanning every day. Of course. Chops down to here, I mean, wearing like a corduroy jacket, which is back. Thank God the corduroy jacket's back. I've had it the whole time and I can wear it again. So I realized pretty quickly, she's in college, my little backstory on me, my dad, made it about 9th grade and started truck driving when I was born. So that way there he can earn money for the family. My mom was working for Textron at the time, which was, she was making, basically like headrests for cars, that was it. You know what I mean? And so my grandparents lived next door. So my grandfather owned a appliance repair shop, and I had an Italian grandmother that loved to just feed us a lot of food. Yeah.
You'll never go hungry with an Italian grandmother.
Dude, yeah, no, she's just like manja. Then all of a sudden, it's just like heaps of shit, and it's great. By the way,
we would spend Sundays at my grandmother's house, and she started cooking dinner at like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
You just ate all day until there was.
You have like a pot of sauce that's like this big, and you just freeze it. It's amazing.
It's great.
Yeah,
so good though.
It's wonderful. So that was that, and so met Denise, who's my wife. We've been married coming up on 17 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you much. And so, she's in college, which at that point, nobody in my family had gone to college.
Oh, right.
Right. In New Hampshire, it's like typically you graduate and get somebody pregnant and probably don't get married. Yep. And then, rinse and repeat, stuff like that. Right. So really kind of joining the military was huge to get me out of that ecosystem, and then kind of forced me to be like, all right, man.
Literally out of that ecosystem.
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah. You don't move far, basically.
Right.
And so to be able to kind of step out of that and kind of grow as a person, I think is huge.
It's funny. You see some of those stats even today, like how many people they'll even like move away to college, but like it's something like 75% of Americans don't live more than 25 miles away from where they were born.
Oh,
like they may go away to school, they may join the military, but they always come back. And just like, there's a whole world out there that's just like dying to be explored, and like who you actually are can probably be found out there.
Oh, 100%. I think that the majority of the world picks safe, right? They would say, I want to go to my comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is comfy. I'm comfy here. I can just do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, they talk about that. Like you're a veteran, I'm a veteran. Like they talk about in the service all the time. 10% wolves, 10% sheepdogs, and 80% sheep.
Yep.
Most people just want to go with the flow. They just want to just get up, have people hated Mussolini, but the trains ran on time. Mm-hmm. What is it? It might be a Gary Vee quote, but it's something along the lines of like, most people like don't do what they like dream to do because they're afraid of what will happen. But if they just did it, like that stuff 90% of the time never happens.
Oh, I mean, I think analysis paralysis is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, like I have a real estate brokerage and mentor agents, and dude, you're not wrong there, right? Like, it's like, not only can we show you the yellow brick road, we're going to put you on the bike that's electric. You don't have to pedal it. All you got to do is just take the journey, right? And people, sometimes they just get stuck in kind of that analysis paralysis of it, or there's so much mental kind of bandwidth that goes to the preparation piece versus the execution piece. And I think if we were to flip that and do 80% execution and 20% preparation, there's going to be a significant amount more of learning that goes with that.
The quote was, most people are held back by self-belief than are propelled by it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah. And it kind of like went along the lines of like, right now there is someone who with like half your ability, but 10 times your self-belief, making 5 times more than you.
For sure. 100%.
And it was just like, man, that's a real great
There's
like,
just
wake-up call.
Something to be said about just doing it, right? Just one step, one bite, just do it and just do it again and do it again. Repetition, right?
Yeah.
And so that's it's like the couch to 5K, but business version.
I love that. So you're at the bar, you meet your wife.
Yep. I'm dressed as a Hooters girl.
You're dressed as a Hooters girl, size medium.
Yeah.
You were $175 at the time.
$175. Heck yeah. I had it was the all black one too. So that was like the corporate trainer one. Yeah, for sure. It was great. Yeah. And so I traded her a shot for a kiss, and I'll tell you what, I don't know.
This was clearly pre-Me Too.
Yeah. So no doubt. I think I got Me Too'd.
When I was bartending at this bar, we used to have like a sundress night.
Yep.
Where no guys were allowed in from like 9 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
It was only women. You had to wear a sundress to come in, and it was like $1 champagne flutes and like $1 mimosas, and these girls would just be like tanked, and then at 11 o'clock the guys would come in, and it's just like that shit would never fly today.
Yeah. Definitely not.
No. But you traded your wife for a shot for a kiss.
Yep. And she took it.
Mm-hmm.
Good news is it was $1 shot night. So that worked out well. And I was going to say, like, if we were going to do like a sport bet on at that point in time, if somebody was going to say like, all right, how much money? Yeah. What's the over under that this ends up in, a 17 years of marriage. Or a lifetime of marriage, and not 17. We're not getting a divorce, babe. I'm just kidding. Lifetime of marriage, yeah, lifetime of partnership.
We're not the Obamas,
yeah, and child and all this other stuff. I would say that it would probably be similar to probably getting struck by lightning, maybe.
Okay.
It's like because
those are good odds.
Yeah, how many times?
Yeah.
Does a bartender kiss a chick and end up with her for life?
None of mine.
None of them that I know either. So here we are. Pretty great. And so knew that she wasn't going to marry a bartender. And at the same time, I was like, took my real estate classes. And one of the bartenders at the time was working with my first sales manager, now business partner, Kevin Bown.
Okay.
And so we started working together, and 6 years later started 12 Rivers, and here we are now 13 years later.
Had you already been thinking about real estate at that point? Like while you were managing the bar?
I mean, everything is so impulsive with me.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm going to end. It was like one of those things where it was always in my mind, like I wanted to do it.
Right.
But there was never like hey, I'm going to bartend for 4 years and then do this.
Yeah.
It was like, it's time to do this now.
Got it.
Right. It was never like in 3 years, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So you get your real estate license. Do you go to work for?
Yes, I started working with Kevin Bown at Goodwin Partners.
Okay.
So Guy Goodwin was the owner of Goodwin Management, which was the largest property management company in Austin at the time.
Okay.
His brother JB at the time had the second largest real estate company in Austin.
Which was what?
JB Goodwin.
Okay.
And so back in the 70s, JB Guy started a brokerage with Gary Keller and Joe Williams, and that started Keller Williams.
Oh.
So imagine in the 70s, there's an office over 183 in Olin, and you have Joe Williams, Gary Keller, JB Goodwin, and Guy Goodwin as probably 20-somethings.
So like four pillars.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden now, here they all are, basically wearing Tommy Bahama shirts, hanging out on boats.
What was the Austin market like back then? So this is like 2000?
So this is, for them, it was the 70s. For me, it was, it was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. And so.
Right. You got out of the service 99.
Right. Yeah. So bartender, got in service 99, got out in 02, bartender for a couple of years, got my license in 05.
Okay.
And then started 12 Rivers in 2011.
Okay. So in that 6 years, did you know, how does that progression work in real estate? There's like groups, right? Like you'll see like so-and-so group, but they're under like an umbrella. Or this person's got a group and they're under umbrella.
Yes,
so you start off as an agent?
Just as an agent, right? Working with Kevin. And my intent with this was I'm just going to be a sponge. I'm going to work every day. And I'm just going to sit next to him and I'm going to listen.
This is that work ethic.
Yeah, it's the work ethic part. Like, look, I can, get to the office at 7, leave the office at 9, and we would literally, until we made a deal, we wouldn't eat. It's like we're saying we wanted to stay hungry.
Okay.
Right. So literally and figuratively. And in that level of just wanting to work and having no ego, just checking the ego at the door. The ego came later, of course. But then from there, it was, I'm just going to do whatever he tells me to do.
Yeah.
And what was great about that is the irony of that is that a lot of it related to me being on the phones trying to sell myself to get somebody to have a meeting with me so that way there I can build the rapport that there I can list their property.
Right. What's the market like back then? Is it like just college kids that never wanted to leave who got jobs, they were renting and then they wanted to buy a home?
Well,
I can't imagine there's a lot of like an influx of professionals back then.
Well, no, there were professionals, right? But
no, of course,
but it wasn't. It was in 2005. Austin was becoming a tech city, right? It was a tech city.
Oh, that's right. It was like Silicon South, right?
Yeah, or Silicon Hills.
Silicon Hills,
right? Is what they call Austin, right? But at the same time, it wasn't completely there yet.
Right.
We had Apple, and we had Samsung,
and
we
had Dell,
right?
Right.
It was pretty big, right? You had 3M, you had Cimatech. So there was certainly AMD. So there's definitely tech here, not to the level that there's tech here now, but there was certainly tech here. And at the same time, the prices were just comparatively just fabulous, right? Like first house I bought was in Millwood up off of Palmer McNeil, was 116,000. Bought it with, $10K down, essentially 5% down.
And what's that worth now?
475.
Yeah.
Realistically. And that's with prices adjusted for today's numbers.
Right.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not bad.
So at what point did you know, hey, I want to branch out and like have my own shop?
So I was working with Kevin within the first year, at 25, again, I'm starting chops down here, right? And I'm the bartender, right? I'm the guy that shows up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, where did that fire for like ownership and entrepreneurial endeavor take hold?
Dude, I actually think that it probably started. The match was lit in the military, I believe, right? Of like wanting to, just being willing to work, whatever. I think the ownership piece or the leadership piece actually happened at Chili's.
Okay.
And literally, my GM at the time, Michael, which I'm so happy I remembered his name because it's a long damn time ago. I would love to find out where he is actually, but he said something to me one time, and at the time I didn't understand it as a 23-year-old.
Yeah.
But I understand it now. He said people's perception is their reality.
Yes.
And I did not understand it at the time. And the reason for that is because I was the guy I was walking faster than everybody else. I was picking up your plates. I'm doing this. I'm sweeping the motor pool. So I'm sweeping the line. And then I would ask people to sweep the line. Hey, can you do this? And I'd make it so that way they saw me do it first. And then thereafter, I felt like I could ask.
Yeah.
But people started to come in to complain about me, asking them to do shit. And I said, but I'm doing it. And he said, Paul, people's perception is their reality. And I just didn't get it. Then, but it's something that it's
different in the military. It's kind of like learn the job above, but teach the job below. But it's in order to get promoted, you have to do
and you tell people to do stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And if you outrank them, they got to do it. Yeah. As it would appear at Chili's, feelings matter.
They didn't issue them in the military.
Yeah, they did not. Yeah, absolutely. You didn't get to talk about that, right? And so that was, that start of like kind of taking out a leadership role. And then when I got into bartending downtown, quickly, and a lot of this attributes back to the whole Presidente Margarita thing.
Yeah.
Right on dollar triple night, I have a bottle of Grey Goose in my well, and I'm like, "Do you want Grey Goose?" And they're like, "Yes." Well, now this is a $6 drink, and you're pouring dollar drinks. So my ring is 6-1 at that point.
Yeah.
Right. And
just on the upsell.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then the owners started to be like, "How is this guy doubling everybody, basically?" And so then they start to take notice of stuff like that.
Yeah. Is your education in business at this point experiential? Are you reading like How to Win Friends and Influence People? Are you talking about Tony Robbins? I mean,
so a lot of it is it's interesting thing that you ask, right? Because there was a time where I felt like I had kind of bumped up against by like I can't get myself any further, right? Basically, like I was like early days of 12 Rivers, and I'm. We're at say like 20, 30 agents and just could not, I just felt like I was a boat that was literally was not on plane, right? I just felt like we hit a certain point where I just felt like I was just pushing through the water basically.
Right.
And so I wasn't necessarily as much like reading books as much, but just asking people.
Yeah.
In a lot of
kind of like you were saying before, just being a sponge.
Yeah. And a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
A lot of
great teacher.
Yeah. A lot of
great teacher.
Oh, that was wrong. Okay. Well, cool. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Not a failure, a learning experience, right? I get to learn from this, and now I can go ahead and take this and apply it someplace else.
When you wanted to start, who did you start 12 Rivers with?
My business partner, Kevin.
Kevin, right.
Yeah.
So was that, and the two of you were at the brokerage before?
Yeah, so I was with Kevin from 2005 to 2007.
Okay.
And again, all this is like learning as we're going, right? And so I'm driving around at least 1 hour a day, getting sign calls, getting signs. And I go back to the office and call them and say, "Hey, my name's Paul Smith with Goodwin Partners, calling about your property at 12345 Street. You have a for rent sign in there. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" Right. And so that'd be the conversation, get an appointment with them and work on the listing piece. and coming from the world of 25-cent wells, it would appear people were not buying real estate and also buying 25-cent wells, right? Like all their money was probably going to the well. And so I had to kind of come up with I didn't grow up in Westlake, right? So I don't have that network of people at that time.
Yeah.
And so, what I did is I went back to what I knew. I grew up on Section 8. So I would literally go down to the Section 8 office and you'd have all these people walking out with their Section 8 vouchers. I would write their names, get all the names. And then I would go over to the board with all the Section 8 owners and I would just call them and tell them, hey, I have a list of people that want to rent your house. Would you pay me a commission?
That's so smart.
Nobody cut their teeth on Section 8, I promise you. It's like but
you go with what you know.
Yeah, you go with what you know. You stay where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And so going back to like whatever the percentage of people move back home. Well, what if you take your security blanket with you?
Wow. And no one had done that.
No, nobody. No,
that's crazy.
Nobody was going to be. Yeah. Nobody goes to like, none of the folks that were like part of the 49ers going to sift for gold were like,
right.
Fuck, I'm going to get coal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like, but there's money in coal. Crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's
wild.
How I started my business. And through that, actually, while I was bartending, the bartender of mine that was in real estate, he was like, "Hey, a client of mine that's a builder is hosting a poker game. You want to come?" I was like, "Sure." I show up, have my shift later.
Yeah.
Don't think anything of it. Lose money, that's fine. Get my real estate license. Now here I am calling owners. I randomly call the guy whose poker tournament I was at. He and his business partner, one West Point, the other OTC, right? They are now, say, young 30s. They've been building on the east side since 2002. It's 2005 now. And they bring me under their wing. Wow. And that military connection and basically my like, look, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. And I showed up. I treated them like they were the pot of gold. Mm-hmm. And a big part of my success is because of that relationship in that poker game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right place, right time.
Just so happened.
With the right background.
Yeah. Can't sell anybody a fucking pen though.
So now you are, 12 Rivers is up and running. How did you know that's what you wanted to call it?
No.
I didn't know where it came. I had Hannah on a little while ago. I didn't know the origin story of 12 Rivers.
Yep. Does she get it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But like, how did no, of course.
Yeah, awesome.
But was that something that you workshopped or
no?
There wasn't like a Chat GPT back then.
No, it was called Chat Cabo, right? Kevin Bound. And so Kevin, my business partner, he grew up in Zilker, Austinite, at very least second generation. Very, very, very smart family, like historian level, huge into NLP, kind of stuff like that. We could, as we talk about that with sales and whatnot too. And so we're trying to think of the name, right? Is it like Bound Smith? Is it, I came from a company that was called Austin City Living, and he was like 12 Rivers, and we're like, because the North and South streets are named after the 12 Rivers of Texas. And then also, if you think about back in the day, what defined real estate? Rivers, right? So it's a double entendre at the very least.
So cool.
Yeah.
So now you've got your own shingle, you've got your own thing. What is something that being an owner you thought you were going to look forward to that actually was a kick in the ass? Just like one of those like, well, this isn't how I thought it was going to be kind of things.
Oh, I think all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not like that preconceived notion of like, all right, I'm the boss now.
Yeah.
It's like, guess what? That means you get to work all the time.
Did you see the Dana White clip that came out? It's like, these people that come up to me like, oh, I can't wait to be a business owner so I can work for myself so that I can do it. It's like, let me tell you something, motherfucker. You're going to be working more than you ever have before. Yeah. There are no weekends. Yeah. There are no holidays. Yeah. There are no this. There are no that. You are in it full-time, 24/7. Welcome to your new life.
Yeah, all that. Like you were literally the buck starts here and
everyone's trying to take it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's always somebody. I think that probably the thing that I didn't think about as far as that goes is is the having employees piece.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd always worked for myself. The first time I got an assistant was in 2011. That was about the same time we started 12 Rivers. So understanding now, as your business grows, that as an owner, that you're doing less and less of the thing that made your business successful, and you're doing more and more of managing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's two things. One is if you can find we all only have so much bandwidth.
For sure.
Right.
That's what my therapist tells me.
And Cody Sanchez talks about this all the time. So if you only have, so much bandwidth and you have 3 verticals and you're putting 33.3% into each vertical, you can only have 3, right? If you have 2, you can put 50% into both. But if you can find someone who can do what you do 70% as well as you, well, now you can have more verticals because now you only have to do 30% of the work. Yeah. But I don't know how it was for you, but I know for me, I had such a reluctance to hiring someone because it's like, they can't do it like I do.
Yeah. It
didn't even enter in my mind that they could 10X what I do.
For sure.
But I was just like, wow, that was a real pivot point for me.
Yeah. I think the whole thing with training lots of agents, and training agents and helping them hire their assistants and kind of helping grow assistants and whatnot. I don't think that necessarily people understand the power of leverage of humans.
Yeah.
And now technology and AI, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I can do it better. You know what? You're right. But now you're the bottleneck for the success and growth. And by the way, if you enjoy doing that thing better than anybody else, good for you too. That's okay, right? Success is your perception.
Yeah.
Not mine.
That's very true. Well, that's the other thing with employees is that it's not just it's not just the hiring, management, and supervision, right? But it's also the managing of their deliverable, but also their personality, but also their emotions, but also their longevity. And then there's one never knows where loyalty is born, but also one never knows where it's going to be betrayed. And then it's a really hard thing to navigate as a business owner, especially when you want to have that emotional connection or that emotional connection with them. Because you're not especially in a business like yours, you're not a CEO up in a C-suite who's got people on the floor doing widgets. You're in these rooms every day with these people.
For sure.
How do you manage those relationships, but still also manage?
I have great people around me. Honestly, I've been very, very fortunate to have, I know and understand. I hope I know and understand, and there's always room for growth here, but what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
Okay.
I enjoy coming up with the idea. I don't necessarily enjoy the process. Right. So I love.
You're the Walt Disney, not the Milt.
Yeah.
You're the Steve Jobs, not the.
So I have a bunch of process people around me, which is great.
Okay.
And so having a director of operations, having an executive assistant, having somebody, when I look at every vertical that I have, having somebody that is kind of, and I'm very visual, when it comes to NLP, I'm visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So to me, it's like when I have, this is one vertical here, and trying to make sure that I have the right person that's over that vertical. Right. And then that person's running that vertical. Right? And sometimes finding that person is the most important part of the vertical, because you can have business out coming out your ears, but if you don't have the right person that's running it, you might as well not have the business.
Yeah. You've mentioned NLP a couple of times now. What was your introduction to that?
So Kevin, my business partner,
For those who don't know, NLP is neurolinguistic programming.
Yeah. And it's in a very metaphorical NLP kind of way. Kevin describes it as, imagine everybody is on their own carousel going at their own speed. What NLP helps you do is learn the speed of somebody else, so you're walking with them together on their carousel. So that way it helps you with communication and really helps you be able to communicate and understand the way they're processing it. So that way you can talk to them within their way of processing information.
Yeah, I think another way to frame that, not that your way was incorrect, the way I've always kind of explained it to it is it's a really good way to know how to meet people where they are.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
if you're here and I'm here and I'm trying to tell you what I'm seeing on the ground, you're not going to get it. We need to have the same. if you and I are mapping a room, we need to both agree on what 12 o'clock is.
Yeah, for sure.
Or we're going to be looking all different places every time a direction is called out.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that something you can teach though?
Yeah, I mean, we do a 16-week course every year at 12 Rivers.
Really?
Yeah. And so Kevin does it. You should do it. It's freaking awesome.
Would love to do it.
It's great. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
I mean, I've done some.
I've gone through it, and it's basically it's a practitioner course.
Okay.
And so I've gone through it as the student.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through it as the person up front that's getting tested every time, you know? And so it's interesting because when you are in front of a group of 20 people that are your agents, and you're basically the person on stage, so to speak, with Kevin, who's the teacher, it's a pretty great way to see inside somebody's soul a lot of times.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You and I were having a conversation at a group gathering the other day, and we were talking about time management.
Yeah.
How is that? You know how your time is managed.
Mm-hmm.
You also have a fleet of people, or a crew of people, or a group of people that are kind of malleable and kind of very independent in how their day is structured.
Right.
How does someone at your level, or what are some of the methodologies or standards you put in place to help manage the dates, drivers, and deliverables of such an autonomous workforce?
Well, I mean, because of the nature of real estate agents, they're 1099 employees, right? And so, so they're not W-2. I can't be like, you need to be here right now, right? Yeah. I can say, hey, look, and this
you can't say, hey, we start work at 9. Yeah. Like, how come you weren't here?
I always challenge somebody to work more than me, right? I was gonna, and I'll see a little bit later after this, but I try to wake up, make sure I take my son to school. And then drive to the office, typically at the office around maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock. And that gives me a good hour by myself to kind of knock out the things that I need to knock out. Yeah. And then at 9 o'clock, people start to come in, right? And that's typically when all the folks that get paid to be there, they come in at 9 o'clock. But then agents, some will be at 9, some will be later. That's up to them. And again, their perception of their success is their reality, right? And so then what I can do is meet them at their level of, hey, I want to be successful in real estate. Well, what does that look like, sound like, feel like to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. If you had that, what would that do for you, right? And then bring them to essentially do a highest criteria and then an ecology check, and then say, okay, to get that, what are these things that you're willing to do? Because it's like, I can tell you what you need to do. Yeah. But again, we started this off with, getting people to take a step down the yellow brick road. Mm-hmm. They got to do it, right? They can't have that like, oh shoot, what am I going to do? It's like, and so what I'm looking forward to you, and we're talking about time blocking, is I would love to, and I'll probably have Kevin do it, is to model you of your day of time blocking.
Sure.
Which I think would be great because I think a lot of people will pick up on that. Because for me, I did put together a Google Doc for my team. And since they're on my team, I have a little bit more of like, there's 12 Rivers, and then there's the Smith Group. Right. And the Smith Group, it's a little bit more like I'm paying for stuff for them outside of 12 Rivers. So I'm like, if I'm going to spend this much money, we're going to make sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so get everybody to fill stuff out. And you're like, wait, hold on a second. So you're saying that you're busy, but looking at your day, you're really spending about 6 hours worth of time on actual work-related stuff. Mm-hmm. And then even within that work-related stuff, you're maybe spending 2 hours on things that actually make you money.
Right.
People are really good at filling their day with shit that doesn't make them money.
100%. People are really good at acting busy.
But you can pass it off as busy, right? And then also it's like, okay, so then how do we maximize with intent each – I love that you break it down by the minute. You said that and I was like, that's a lot. Because for me, my level of ADD is like, oh, hey, you want to do this? Yeah. I got 31 LLCs basically. It's like I've got –
right.
My CPA is like, all right, dude, what extensions do I need to find? Yeah. Right. Like it's just because to me, it's like you have all these great opportunities. And with my ADD, I'm like, yeah, we can make that work. And then you're like, well, shit, okay, I guess I got to figure it out now. Right. And then you're like, hey, here's the, you can see the construct, and then you get the people that deliver it.
You know what a big thing that helped me was at 10 p.m. the night, at 10 p.m., my calendar for the next day is locked.
Oh, I love that.
Period. If someone calls and says, hey, want to meet for lunch? Can't today. We can do it the next day. Because I know.
It's pretty good.
Right?
Leanna's like, this guy's just, it was like, that's a good one. We should do that.
At 10 p.m., my day for the next day is locked.
Awesome.
Until 10 p.m. the next day. right? So I know I've got gym time, I've got work, I've got a podcast, I've got interviews, I've got writing, I've got reports. And it's like, if someone goes, hey, like, can we grab lunch? I'm like, no. Hey, can we go shooting? No. Because my day's structured.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to, everything up until that next day is malleable. Yeah. I can rotating order of priorities, tyranny of the urgency, whatever. Yeah. But the next day, I know exactly what it looks like.
Oh, wow.
And it's blocked off and it's boom, boom, boom. Now, some things in that day, I know, and that what I mean by that is like, I know the things that like, let's say there's, 4 or 5 things I know that need to get done today. And like one of them is a workout, one's a podcast, one's a report that's due. And like, I'll go, okay, which one of these gets a 3-hour block, one of these gets a 2-hour block, and then 3 of these get a 1-hour block.
That's awesome. Right.
Now, if this gets done in 2 hours, okay, now I can either make the choice to either get my workout in early or do this or do that, or I can, but at the end of the day, these are all ticked off.
That's awesome.
And that's how I manage my day.
That's great.
Yeah. This is how I manage the dates, drivers, and deliverables.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When I started out, and I'm not necessarily perfect on this by any means. But when I started out very entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. Right. It's just kind of like you're just,
of course.
What worked? Yeah. What shit did we hit at the wall? Yeah. Okay, this worked. It didn't work.
Same thing. I was like throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what would stick.
And then you start to get systematic. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you start to say, okay, what's the best way for me to maximize my time? What's my highest dollar per hour? And that's when you start to say, okay, who do I need to bring on the team so that whether I can leverage this or I can do that, and really just spend my time doing the things that I love doing that make me money.
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was Goggins. But he's like, everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to, be wealthy. He's like, but it's the systems and strategies that'll get you there. Like you put 3 people at the beginning of a race, they all have the same goal, which is like to win the race. But each one of those people had a different diet, had different nutrition, had a different regimen, had a different coach, had a different, right? It's like the old thing about, if you're a baseball scout, right? And there's a guy who runs from home to first base with perfect form, and there's a guy who runs from home plate to first base with shitty form, but they both get there at the exact same time. Which one do you recruit? The guy with the shitty form.
Yeah.
Because once you get the better systems and processes in place, he's going to blow the guy with great form out of the fucking water.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. The level of improvement for the person with shitty form is exponential.
Is exponential.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you look for? You and I were talking before about, is it quick to hire, quick to fire? Is it quicker to hire even, or is it quick to hire even? Or I'm sorry, I said it was be slow to hire and quick to fire.
And Gary V.
No, be quick to hire, quicker to fire.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there have been times in your professional career where you're like, hey, I'm not so sure about this person, and they blow it out of the water. And there's also probably been people that this person's going to be like a superstar and they can't get out of their own goddamn way.
In putting on 2 different hats there, when I'm talking about realtors, absolutely, because everyone's like running their own business. Right. And so as an agent, I'm like, wow, you have all the tools that other agents have had that have then gone on to either win Rookie of the Year, be an ABJ Top 25, Platinum Top 50, win all the accolades.
Yeah.
But yet, for whatever reason, they just don't have the drive to do it. And then you've got other people that are like, man, you don't have the tools, so to speak, of the network and everything else, but you're just doing the thing over and over again that's repetitive, that makes you $1.
Yeah.
And then over time, that scales.
Yeah. That's interesting. Have there been any... I'm curious about like disruptions to the marketplace. Like COVID was obviously, and disruptions can be a pro and a con.
Sure.
Right. So we talked about like Katrina. When Katrina hit, you had a lot of people who just like lost everything and just, I'm going to rebuild somewhere else. And so they came to Austin and they were rebuilding there. COVID was kind of a little bit different. It was like we were open, right? I think we went from like phase 1 to phase fuck it in like 5 days. LA, New York, and DC were just like on,
they were
you
just
have to
like,
wear 5 masks in your car by yourself.
Just like take them. We're like, yeah, come on in, open arms.
We now see what's going on in California with the Palisades and the disruption there, and people making a decision about either to go there and invest. Is that an opportunity for expansion, or are those people going to be rehoused here in Austin?
For sure.
But looking forward, what do you think is where do you see the market going? Is housing going to just like completely, has there been like a real revolutionary way to like either, okay, so they're talking about, did you see the one house in Malibu that was like the last house standing? Because it was like an $11 billion house because the guy built it with like fire retardant materials and had, xeriscape and had like these distances between, and all these other homes around him are just like burned to the ground. Have you seen a lot of changes in construction home type or
for sure
solar?
So 12 Rivers partnered with Icon. So Icon is a 3D printing company out of Austin.
Oh,
so
ICON?
Yeah, ICON. Yeah, or IKON. IKON. Sorry. Yeah. So Icon is a 3D printing company. They literally, so the first iteration was like your normal 3D printer, right? You have your two stacks and goes across and it just goes there. It can be 40 feet wide. And so you can literally print a home. I'll send you some photos and you can put them about. Yeah, it's super dope, dude. But there's also, in that time frame, they have U.S. military has paid them basically. They're going to be building on Mars whenever that happens.
Maybe sooner rather than later.
For sure. They have the contract to basically create the runway on the moon.
That's a pretty cool contract.
If you ever want to take a tour, let me know. It's pretty dope.
I would love to. Yeah, that sounds really. I also like to get one of them on the podcast because that sounds fucking fascinating.
Yeah, dude. They like 60 Minutes has done a thing on them and a follow-up thing up on them. Yeah, dude. And so they're doing 120 homes right now at Homes First.
Okay.
Right. It's
it's the outreach.
Yeah, it's an outreach community in Austin.
That's right. That the whole 60 Minutes thing. That was it's like 45 minutes from here, a little north-ish.
Yeah. It's crazy. So then they can actually deliver product, like if need be, really quickly. But then there's also other military application, right? Yeah. There's can withstand winds up to 250 miles an hour. Does not burn. It doesn't burn. It's cement. Yeah. It's like a mortar. It's like basically. It's flame retardant, wind retardant. Like literally, if in the houses that they're building, you can have it where there's no wood at all. Right. So it's all metal. It's all cement. All that stuff.
What about in terms of like scale? Like you used to see like in World War II, you had like a lot of those like craftsman style homes, right? Yeah. 1 story, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Those are all getting knocked down. And then like you see these like, a big first house and then an ADU in the back or something like that. But I'm starting to see a lot more of these. You know what you see in like LA and Marina del Rey and Venice Beach that you really don't see here, which I'm always kind of interested in because there is such an entrepreneurial like community here, is like the work-live space.
Yep.
Where there's like, like
street level retail. Yeah. Or something.
Well, you kind of see that, but I'm talking about where it's like, it's almost like townhomes, but like the first floors are, you can have a gym or you can have a design studio or you can have a podcast studio or you can have a whatever you want.
So you're starting to see them, some of the kind of infill mid-rise condos that you're starting to see along what's called like different TODs or transit-oriented districts. So think like Airport Boulevard is one that will be kind of like the next one, if you will. South Congress was probably one of the OGs, South Lamar, North Burnett. Yeah. Right. So you see that everywhere in a lot of those, Manor Road. You'll see that now where that first floor, you have some sort of a workspace. And then above you'll have like a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom condo.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that how long has 12 Rivers been in business?
So we just hit 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
What is your vision for the next 13 years?
I think let's say the first 13 years have been a lot of learning and a lot of growth, a lot of mentorship, also being mentored. I think let's say the next 5 to 13 years is a setup for some sort of an exit.
Okay. Yeah. Is that something, I mean, you don't start a business unless you want to sell it.
For sure.
Right? But if someone made you an offer today, would you take it?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Sure.
Yeah.
I used to sponsor the Austin Technology Council.
Okay.
Right. I was the only real estate company that was sponsoring them.
Yeah.
And so I got to go to their like tech CEO summit. And one of the CEOs, like super, of course, nerdy guy was like, when does an entrepreneur take money off the table? When there's money on the table.
Of course.
Right. Like, I don't think that any one of my companies define me. Right. If somebody wants to give me a bunch of money, I'll stay on to help you run it. But there's so much more to the world, right?
There's so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, going outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of fun things out there.
Do you have your eye on something?
I know you have like a million other like businesses that you could like be creative and
potentially we are looking at. So I have a title company as well. So I have 12 Rivers Realty. I have Rise Title. We have 2 Rise Title offices. And so the thought on that, which I think we're 5 years in business now.
Yeah.
So what we did is we took 1% of the company and sold it to influencers in the Austin real estate market. So I took 20% and I sold it 1% at a time to people that would send business. And then we just started all directing our business because the way that TDI says it is that if you send me business, I cannot pay you for that business. Rightfully so, it's a kickback. However, if you're an owner in the company, I can pay you a dividend just like anybody else.
Interesting.
So then you just go create the company.
Was that something you came up with?
No, it was. I was super fortunate that my business partners out of Dallas, they had been approached by a company out of Lubbock and they were like, hey, Paul, we should try this.
That's pretty smart.
It was great. Yeah, absolutely.
That's really great.
And so then for me, any one of my businesses, we own the real estate that we're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm my own landlord.
Right.
So then you start talking about owning different, offices around Austin, thinking about like kind of to some extent the McDonald's model of like, why would you not pay yourself rent?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Taylor Sheridan's model on like how he does his entire production thing is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Like he buys the ranch, but then rents out the ranch for the programs to be filmed on, but then uses the beef from the ranch to feed the people.
Yeah.
So it's this never ending cycle of
integration.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally vertically integrated.
Yeah. That's like, why not? Right. At some point, like if you are touching it and selling it to somebody or somebody's making money off of it, then if you are the director of the business, then why shouldn't you start the business?
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. I wanted to circle back on the influencer thing. What are some of the things you look for in those influencers that you kind of, that they would be, because I assume you don't want them all to have like the same target audience. Right. One would be talking to more like an affluent society. Maybe one's talking to like first time home. Like what are kind of
the nice first question or, the nice first thought is just don't be a dick. Right. Like
it's a pretty good rule.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like why not just work with people that we want to work with? There's some very successful people out there that are assholes and good for them.
And we all know them.
Yeah. And so good thing is I don't have to work with them. Right. And so we can all be successful and we can, attract like. And so, for us, it's, looking for people that are successful in the real estate market, but then also people that have a good social reach.
That's a good one. They would have to have the social reach, right? Because otherwise,
I'd rather
be an influencer.
Influencer meaning that they can close real estate. Right. They can direct business. It's not like influencer in the way of like checking Instagram. It's like I can influence where you close your property.
Well, that's interesting because who was I listening to? In terms of like, was it Hermosi? I think it was Hermosi. May have been Layla. But they, because they're doing this like school thing, right? Where it's like different people have different strategies and blah, 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 blah. And there was this, I'm just going to say this as an anecdote. I'm probably going to get a little bit on some of it wrong, so don't come at me with this shit. Yeah. But, they have people who have millions of followers. They have people who have hundreds of thousands of followers. And, they're making about the kind of ROI that you would expect.
Yeah.
Then there was this woman who had like 5,000 followers and was making like $1 million plus a year. Yeah. And they were like, who is this girl? But she had found such a small niche of, I think it was like nurses who only did in-home care for like people who either were on hospice or like some kind of thing. Sure. And it was, she had developed this service or this software, this program or some kind of a process that like reduced the redundancy of from invoicing through the insurance to getting paid.
Yep.
And even though she only had like 5,000 followers, for like 90% of them were paying customers on a residual monthly basis. Whereas like you had 1 million followers, but only like 10% were your customer base.
For sure.
And it was just like, it took their whole,
just flipped it
vantage point.
Yes,
they're like, oh, it's like, so it does, like what really matters is the engagement, not the amount of followers in this.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would rather have, it's interesting. There was an agent that he caught a bunch of flack for shooting some content in the back of his Maybach. And on, the 1,100 people that loved it on Facebook, but the 80,000 people that flamed him on TikTok. And he was like, guess what? Facebook's where my fucking people are at.
Yeah.
TikTok, I don't give a fuck. Like you're not buying houses in Westlake, by the way. Right. Yeah, let's call it what it is. Yeah. Right. And so I think understanding who your market is and really kind of target that, I think is very important.
Yeah.
But then also we spoke about this a little bit the other day, is just being like genuinely yourself.
You have to be authentic.
Right. People connecting with that is, I think it's extremely important, because you see people that are not, and they just don't look comfortable.
You can fake it for a short amount of time, but over, you and I can sit down on a podcast and I can pretend to be anyone I want for 20 minutes, but over 3 hours, you're going to know who I am.
For sure. Absolutely.
Right. That facade's going to fade in and out. And eventually I'm just going to go back to being who I am right now. Which I think I think that's also going to change. And we kind of saw it this year with like the election cycle.
Yeah.
Like you really want to sit down with someone for a long period of time and actually like flesh out the nuance of what they believe, what they don't believe.
For sure.
Because like just the sound bites aren't cutting it anymore. That's not authentic.
Yeah. And I mean, you can take anything out of context, unfortunately.
100%. But I think the other point you made about, kind of like knowing who you're trying, you read like Kevin Kelly's like 1,000 True Fans. I'll send it to you.
That's a lot.
But he's basically saying like, if you have 1,000 true fans, like these are your first to know, first to try, first to
fans or friends.
Fans.
Oh, I thought you said friends. I was like,
no, fans.
Oh yeah,
like these are people who are fans of what you do, and like you know what I mean.
What I call core advocates.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're looking to buy a home. You got to work with Paul.
Right.
He helped us find our first home.
People who are bringing up your name when you're not in the room.
Yeah, that's 100%. Core advocates. You're cheerleaders. Yeah. Gary Keller has a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and he talks about the different types of leads, right? And when you're running a business, one thing that I say a lot of times to be successful is you have to have leads. You have to have somebody to do a thing with, whatever that thing is, right? That person has a need, you can identify that need, and then you can solve that need.
Yeah.
And so they said for every 12 core advocates, you get 2 deals a year. Was his ratio, right? And so that's something that I'll convey to my agents is like, look, the whole thing is to turn people into core advocates.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that we forget, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit, is that we sometimes get so caught up in who we are that we forget that the important thing is the client, right? We let our ego get in the way. We let this get in the way. Let family, maybe whatever it is, right? And at the end of the day, though, the experience is the client's experience. And we want to make sure that if we're providing the best service and client experience, we should no doubt be successful.
Yeah.
Assuming you also wake up and call people back.
I think I think there's 2 things. One is do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
If you say you're going to call them back, call them back. And the second is, and this kind of goes to, we're kind of like circling back to the very beginning with like the sales and relationship thing. People won't always remember what they said. They will always remember how you left them feeling.
For sure.
Always. So it's like, try to have some empathy.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're going to remember. Paul, this has been a lot of fun. I end every podcast by asking my guests 5 questions. These questions have absolutely nothing to do with anything we've talked about before, but it's I like using these questions because they're an opportunity for me to get to know you a little bit better, right there or right here.
Yeah. Good.
First question: what is a piece of art, a book, a movie, a TV show that really spoke to you on a deep level, and how did that impact your life?
I recently purchased a piece of art called The Block. It's an original piece by Justin Bua. And basically Bua is an artist. He grew up in New York, came up in the 80s, experiencing hip hop. And, he at a young age painted a painting called The DJ, which has sold over 22 million copies. And so I met him through the music part of my life. And we've become really good friends. He lives in Bernie. And so it was one of those things where I was creating a new logo, and I asked him to do my logo. And then he also was like, hey, what do you think of this? And it's called The Block, right? And so at the same time, I was able to assemble a block and a half on Cesar Chavez. So I'm learning about higher level of development, right? So we're going to go from doing one or twosies to now 150,000 square feet. And then also there's a very kind of hip hop reference of the block, don't buy the block, or, buy the block type thing. And then separately, I launched a real estate crypto podcast called the Crypto Takeover Show, where my name is Bought the Block. And so it's actually a triple entendre of the art, the real estate piece, and then the blockchain.
That's a great answer.
You got to come check it out.
I'd love to see that in person. Seeing art in person impacts you in a way that the representation of it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like I remember, I've seen photos of the Sistine Chapel, but until I saw the Sistine Chapel, it was just like, whoa. Oh.
Yeah, because it's scale, right? You can't, it's hard to convey
and the attention
scale.
to detail and just the way the lights hit it. And unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, good. I'm glad I can be a first.
Thank you. Number 2, aliens, fact or fiction?
Gotta be fact.
Yeah. Like little green men, like out there somewhere, or like Area 51, or like drones over New Jersey.
It's interesting.
They're not drones over New Jersey.
No, I know. I can't really tell, other than I just somehow found myself at a sushi dinner with Diplo, Dan Crenshaw, one of his friends from SEAL Team 3, this badass producer, MK, myself, my friend English Andy, who's VC guy, met through Gumball, met through Dave Chappelle, and another good friend of mine that's a business partner that does gender reassignment surgery.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah,
imagine having somebody like Dan at dinner, and then somebody that does gender reassignment. We didn't have a conversation. Everybody does, right? And so some crazy stuff happened that night. And
I can imagine. That's a very specific grouping of persons.
Yeah, it just so happened that way.
Question number 3. If you could spend 1 week in any fictional universe, what would it be?
1 week in any fictional universe. Yeah. What would it be? That's a good question.
Thank you.
Dude, I mean, the nerd in me wants to go Marvel, but I feel like that's, it's just some bad shit happened to people in Marvel too, the blip might not be that bad for half of them, maybe that's not a bad thing.
You can go Gotham.
Yeah, absolutely.
Across the river.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you're not a guy out around the track.
And just any of those comic book universes, you just don't want to be the guy walking down the street while one superhero throws the other into a building and just it falls on you.
Yeah, absolutely. God, that's really freaking good, man. I keep, so you can see the visual. I'm trying to visualize it right now. Dude, I gotta think Tony Stark shit, basically, like being at Stark Enterprises or something like that. And
just all the R&D going on, just all the cool new shit.
Absolutely.
Right? Jarvis makes its first appearance.
Millionaire Playboy philanthropist.
Billionaire Playboy philanthropist.
Yeah, billionaire. Yeah, for sure.
Number 4, similar vein. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Probably telekinesis.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So think like
Charles, shit with your mind.
Charles
Xavier.
Yeah. No. So that's is that which one?
Yeah, that's telekinesis. Yeah, telekinesis is when you could.
So what is it when you can read minds? I was thinking, what's telekinetic? Telekinesis?
No, it's the same thing, right? Telepathy.
Telepathy. Oh yeah. Sorry.
Telepathy. Mental telepathy is when you can read people's minds.
Telepathy.
Yeah. That'd be. I mean, Neuralink is pretty close.
For sure.
Right? Like we're probably 10 years away from nonverbal communication. Unfortunately, you're really going to know how much dark shit's in my mind.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, some people some people went in my mind, they'd cry in a corner for the rest of their life.
For sure. Yeah.
You know,
those are the people that move home.
Yeah. I don't know. You'd probably be like, that's some cool shit. Like Justin would be like, wow,
that's dark.
That's awesome.
Let's go.
All right. Final question. We'll get you out of here on this. Clint Eastwood is directing a movie that is based on your life.
Yep.
Who is he casting to play Paul Smith?
Oh, probably Jim Carrey.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. Like, he's a little bit serious, but he can also go,
yep.
You know, he can go eternal sunshine, but he can also go mask.
Yep.
Depending on the level of sobriety.
Malleable.
This is great.
Yeah.
Paul Smith, 12 Rivers Realty. People want to learn more. If people want to learn more.
People want to love more.
People want to know more. People want, dear God, let me do that one again. Paul Smith, ladies and gentlemen, 12 Rivers Realty. If people want to learn more, what's the best way for them to reach out, connect, or learn more?
Man, check me out on Instagram. It's Paul Sells TX.
Okay.
Reach out, say what's up.
I'll absolutely put in the show notes.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
That's great, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, dude. That was awesome.